I don't think the current exercises are a prelude to an attack. I think Beijing is essentially reacting to the Pelosi visit, but I do think the next 5 to 10 years are the most dangerous period, the period where China is most likely to use force against Taiwan if it in fact intends to do so, because China has a window of opportunity to take Taiwan in the sense that it's just come off about a decade of a massive military buildup where it's churned out warships and ammunition faster than any country we've seen since World War II. And at the same time, the United States and Taiwan have been very slow about diversifying their own forces and reinforcing them. And so China has this military window of opportunity, but at the same time, the United States and Taiwan have ambitious plans to revamp their defenses by the 2030s. And by that point, China is going to be in a severe demographic crisis because it's going to lose 70 million working age adults between now and then, gain 120 million senior citizens. The economy looks like it's in really bad shape. Debt has obviously ballooned and is going to weigh down growth in the years ahead. And Xi Jinping will be in his 80s by the early 2030s. So there's just a lot of arrows pointing to this is the most dangerous period for Taiwan. It doesn't mean that a war is inevitable, but just given that it would be China's best opportunity, I think we have to be extra vigilant if you're on the U.S. or Taiwanese side. So I don't think China could successfully conquer Taiwan, but that doesn't mean that China doesn't think that it can conquer Taiwan, or that Xi Jinping would be willing to risk having a failed military operation in order to gamble essentially for Chinese conquest of Taiwan. I think an amphibious invasion it's the hardest mission in warfare. China really has no experience, and while I do think China could really wipe out big parts of Taiwan's military in a big missile and airstrike, that's obviously very different from actually having to ferry across hundreds of thousands of troops across the Taiwan Strait, land on the beaches of Taiwan, and somehow pacify a population of 23 million people. It's also very different than sustaining a blockade of Taiwan indefinitely under potentially sanctions and possibly even military attacks from the United States, Japan, Taiwan, possibly Australia. So I do think the deck is stacked against China, but the problem is it's not 100% clear, and so there are opportunities. It's not guaranteed that China would fail, and I just worry very much that Xi Jinping, dictators tend to only hear the information they want to hear. Xi Jinping has purged a lot of his colleagues over the years. And so I just worry that he's not getting realistic, updated information, or just might be willing to accept enormous casualties in order to make a statement and in order to try to reunify Taiwan once and for all with the mainland. I think it's certainly possible. I mean, he has said that this is a problem that cannot be handed down generation to generation. He's talked about Taiwan. The reunification of Taiwan needs to happen for the realization of China's great national rejuvenation, which is what he's basically promised the population that he will achieve. And I also, just worry that, what we've seen in the past is where a rising power starts to slow down and get pushback, its regime starts worrying not only about international forces, but about domestic unrest. Once you don't have that rapid economy to sustain, to pay people off and to make people happy that they're part of the system, you have to start relying on nationalism a lot more, try to get people to rally around the regime. And we've often seen countries opt for international expansion, and this would be the most obvious site of Chinese expansion. It's also just, from a purely military perspective, it's also the low-hanging fruit for China, in the sense that because it's only 100 miles from the mainland, this is where China's advantages would be most magnified and America's advantages diluted, because the U.S. would be having to surge in military power from outside the combat theater.